Very interested in your book on the Black Panther movement and what made you decide to write it and what form it's going to take.
What I'm doing at the moment is the prelude to maybe, I don't think it'll turn into a book, but I'm still at very early stages of figuring all this stuff out, so I'm still interviewing people and still learning about what's going on. But one of the reasons that this seems to me to be important is precisely because in the US, the food movement in particular is being called upon to feed the hungry. And without understanding how, as I say, that there is this dignified emergency, that there is a reason. I mean, obviously the hungry must be fed, and people who are in a position to do so must do that. But the danger is, I mean, the government likes that quite well, that all these people who are talking about revolution are now manning the soup kitchens, and we've shut them up, and we've managed to cut our budget, and we've pushed all this cost out onto other people, and it works out great. But that's not what a lot of the food movement is for, and the visions of the food movement are about ideas around justice, around equality, and around redistribution. Those are some of the ideas that mattered to the Black Panthers, and looking at why it is that they did what they did, and also looking at how they, the lessons that they learned. I think now's a very interesting time to be looking at that, in order that we don't repeat those mistakes, in order that we can glean as much as we can from that history, and also infuse some of the politics of the food movement right now with a more radical edge, frankly. I mean, I think that not many people know that the Black Panthers were involved in school breakfast programs or shoe programs or medical research funding, and it's important to understand why they were involved in all that and what it was, how they saw those programs as part of a bigger revolutionary project. And now I just want to end with talking about how the Black Panthers in America were working on some of these ideas. And when I say about Black Panthers, I mean, it was obviously they're inspired by what was going on in South Africa. The ideas of black consciousness and also the ideas of Fanon were important in some of what inspired the activists who then went on to found the Black Panthers. Though, of course, they were also inspired, and this is a history that I'm just getting into, and I need to get more information here. They were also inspired by groups in San Francisco that were radical members of the radical commons. So there was a free food movement in San Francisco in 1966 and 1967 that tried, and it was actually largely run by white people, at which these activists came. And they saw this, this free food thing, and it wasn't just about the free food, it was also about the way in which that food was governed. They tried to set up the free food movement in the Haight in San Francisco. It's called the Haight is the area. H-A-I-G-H-T, not H-A-T-E. Haight. If it's Afrikaans, it'd be easier to tell. So what they were doing, these people saw themselves as levelers. And this is an idea from English history, a radical idea about making the commons again, about stopping privatization, but holding property in common and figuring out ways of distributing that property in common. And a lot of the Black Panther activists knew about that and were in conversation with the activists in San Francisco, the white activists over there. The black activists were in Oakland on the other side of there's a big body, the other side of the bay. But they took, ideas traveled. And they traveled 10 miles across the bay. And they informed one of the earliest programs of the Black Panthers. And initially the Black Panthers were the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And they were defending themselves really against the police. There was a great deal of police violence in Oakland. And so this was you see these iconic pictures of the Black Panthers holding shotguns. And what they used to do was just follow the police around to make sure the police didn't kill anyone. But the police knew that they were there, and this was a manifestation of people power that didn't involve direct violence, but it did involve guns. Now, after setting up the Black Panther Party for self-defense, the self-defense part was dropped, and a bigger political program began to emerge. part of that, one of the first acts of the Black Panther Party was to set up what they called survival programs, particularly in Oakland, where the Panthers were starting out. There were a number of needs that the African American community had, and foremost among them was food. So the first program that the Black Panthers set up as part of these survival programs was the breakfast program, where and the words were this is open to all black and poor children. So kids from around the neighborhood were sort of, they found a church and they started just giving away the free food. And they got the free food by going around and basically asking for donations from local businesses. And then they went to the Safeway, which is, do you have Safeway? I forget if you have Safeway. The supermarket chain, it's, like Spar or something. And they went to the Safeway asking for a donation. And the Safeway said, no, we're not going to do that. So they organised a boycott of Safeway. Until some. But basically the food came in. And this was one of, I think, 47 survival programs. So it wasn't just about food. It was also about free clothes, free shoes. There was a program to help elderly people out at night, because there was a lot of fear among elderly African Americans about going out at night. So there was escort service. There was ambulance service. They set up the Sickle Cell Anemia Research Foundation, because among African Americans, sickle cell anemia was a very, very big problem, and no one was doing research on it because it was only affecting African Americans. So they set up the Sickle Cell Anemia Research Foundation. And there are 40 odd of these programs. And they did it as partly as a recruiting tool, but there's this idea that, particularly now, when we're talking about these entitlements shrinking, where the food movement is being called upon, you must feed the hungry, because there's so many hungry people. You must stop talking about change and food sovereignty, you just feed the hungry. And the way that this was theorized in the Black Panthers was this idea of, well, survival pending revolution. We need to survive. I mean, obviously there is a dignified emergency among the poor. There is a dignified emergency that people are suffering and need to eat. It is just beyond, it's unconscionable that people go hungry. So we must feed the hungry, of course. But this isn't about dependency or welfarism. It's about organising. And the idea of the breakfast program and the other feeding programs that they instituted, and again all these other survival programs, was not to turn the Black Panther Party into a welfare institution. They weren't social workers in the conventional sense. They were activists and militants who were agitating for bigger change.